We'd like to call the March 15, 2011 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. Would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time we'd like to introduce the board members, starting on my right.
Nancy Plesnarski.
Walter Recook.
Gary Willis.
Jim Hilly.
And Todd Chernick.
Did everybody get the February
Yes.
meeting minutes? We need a motion to approve.
Before we do that, I just wanted to make, I didn't request a change to them. I just want to make sure the staff made that change. I can't remember the specifics.
I fixed it.
You said...
It had to do something with the condition.
Now, you said without prejudice, with prejudice?
Yes, it had to do with that aspect of our ruling. Okay, thank you. In that case, I'll make a motion to approve the February agenda, or I'm sorry, February meeting minutes.
We need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Nancy Plesnarski. Discussion? All in favor of approval, raise your right hand. Passed 5-0. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-legal board composed of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determinations. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these four considerations. A, relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secure and that substantial justice is done. This time we'd like to hear V11-003, 15390 Little Stone Way, to allow a house to encroach in the minimum side yard setback. Angela, will you please present?
Thank you. This is petition V11-003, stated 15390 Little Stone Way. This site is a single-family home on 1.164 acres in the Stonehenge subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and it is in the Northwest Overlay. BB&T Bank has acquired the title to an existing 1,152 square foot home, single-family home. The bank entered it into a contract to sell the house in January of 2011. During the due diligence process, the potential buyers discovered that the house had been built 19.6 feet from the northeastern property line. This equates to a 5.4-foot encroachment into the side yard. Section 64.416C1 states that the side yard setback for AG1 properties is 25 feet. No structures are to be allowed in this setback, therefore a variance is required. Design Review Board courtesy review. There were the Design Review Board stated that they had no aesthetic issues with this review. The staff held a focus meeting on February 23rd. The following comments were provided. Building plan review, site plan review, arborist, and DOT all had no issues. Standards for consideration. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. In fact, the granting of this variance furthers the intention of the ordinance, particularly with respect to protecting the property against depreciation, among other intentions supported by this request relief. There are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of the property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. The response is, because a physical portion of the structure was built over the setback line, all fiscal options are cost prohibitive. This includes moving the entire structure or raising and rebuilding a portion of the house. These efforts would be excessive with respect to time, labor, and cost. Relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. The applicant's response: the variance requested is limited in scope. However, the property is unmarketable and will remain vacant unless the variance request is approved. The public good of the surrounding properties is not infringed upon by this variance request. Rather, surrounding neighbors will better be served by having the home inhabited by a new homeowner instead of remaining vacant. That the public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and that substantial justice is done. This setback violation is virtually unnoticeable and poses no threat to the health or welfare of the neighboring properties or subdivision as a whole. In fact, if the variance is granted, the property may be sold, which is better for the safety, health, and welfare than a vacant, unsellable property. Recommending conditions. Should the board choose to approve this application, staff recommends the following conditions. Staff has no conditions at this time. This concludes the staff presentation.
Any questions for staff from the board at this time? At this time, we'd like to ask the applicant to please come forward. If you would state your name and address for us, and then present.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Dickinson, and my address is 740 Owens Lake Road, Milton, Georgia. Really, she did a great job. She said exactly. My client is BB&T, which is a bank who brought this property through a foreclosure, and it is a one of several properties that they've purchased. They've had to take back. This particular case, there is, at its greatest point, there's a violation over the setback line, and it's just a little over 5 feet, where the administrative variance would have been 2.5 feet. At its greatest point, it slivers down into basically a pizza pie sliver, so the overhang is actually relatively small. Because we feel exactly that we're not doing anything that violates the spirit of the ordinance, we are requesting that this variance be approved by this body.
Any questions from the board to the applicant?
Do you have an idea what the date of the structure was built?
Yes, that sounds right. 2007.
I'm assuming that was before we became a city? And we became a city in, I believe it was December.
That's true. Yes, I do believe it was before. I do believe it was before Milton.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board to the applicant? Thank you. At this time, we'd like to open the floor for any public comment, if there is any. Since there is none, you do have an opportunity to make a closing statement if you'd like to add anything.
I just think in summation, I would just say that I think that the variance is really the most sensible, reasonable response to the problem that we have at hand, and it does not violate or infringe upon anybody in the neighborhood, and it also supports the ordinance terms. So I would ask this body to approve for the variance that we've requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions for staff at this time from the board? This time, we'd like to close the public hearing. And at this time, the floor is open for a motion. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I make a motion to approve V11-003 to allow a house to encroach into the minimum 25-foot side yard setback, as the applicant has met all 4 variance considerations as presented in their petition, with no conditions.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? All in favor of approving V11-003 to allow a house to encroach in the minimum 25-foot side yard setback, and looking at all 4 variances with no conditions, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Let it be known it passed 5-0. Thank you very much.
Good luck in your home. I hope you get a sale.
This time, we'd like to present V11-004 to reduce the 50-foot buffer, 10-foot improvement setback to a 5-foot landscape strip along the east property line for 150 foot from back corner of main building south for 150 feet, from back corner of the main building south for 150 feet. Angela, will you please present?
This is petition number V11-004. Background, the site, 1403 North Park Lane, I'm sorry, that's road.
Yeah.
2865 Webb Road is the location of the IQ Academy, a Montessori school and daycare. The property is zoned O&I per RZO 6051, which was approved for 38-child, 2,000 square foot daycare within the existing structure. The petition, RZO 720, with concurrent variance 07015, allowed the applicant to expand the existing daycare facility to 3,600 square feet by adding a 1,600 square foot temporary building to be used as a classroom. The center is restricted to a total of 78 students. The subject property is bordered to the east and west by single-family residential property, zone AG1. The property to the rear of the daycare is zone C1 and includes Stanton Heating and Air and the Windward Shopping Center. The original 2006 rezoning reduced the required 25 square foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback to a 5-foot landscape strip along the east and west property lines only in the area of the existing driveway, structure, and parking areas. The 2007 concurrent variance reduced the buffer to a 5-foot landscape strip along the west property line from the back of the existing building for a distance of 150 feet. The temporary classrooms are currently in place. However, a certificate of occupancy has not been issued by the city because all the conditions of RZO 7 and VCO 7015 have yet to be met. Outstanding conditions include installation of a black 4-board equestrian fence adjacent to the sidewalk and submittal of a copy of the approved state registration to community development. The approved landscape strip also requires planting. The city arborist estimates the cost of planting the 5 required 3-inch caliper trees to be $1,500. The conditions are attached in your packets. Ms. Peruzzi states that she needs an additional play area to serve the school's expansion. The site is long at 504 feet and narrow at 118 feet, and the 25-foot buffer reduces the allowable area for the playground. Staff notes that there is a chain link fence located approximately 5 feet into the buffer along the east property line. The site map shows septic drainage fields located directly behind the main building. The rear half of the lot is currently wooded. Staff notes that with the placement of the temporary classroom building, the usable area for the playground was further reduced. Georgia daycare licensing requirements state that at least 100 square feet should be available for each child occupying the outside play area at any one time. Groups of children may be rotated if necessary so that 100 square feet per child is provided at all times. It appears that this requirement is met by the current fenced play area. Staff notes that area further towards the rear of the property is available, but this would require tree removal and possible grading if additional space is needed. As part of the 2008 petition, the east and west property owners signed a letter stating that they are not opposed to the reduction of the buffer. This letter was attached to your packets as well. Ms. Ferruzzi is now requesting permission to reduce the buffer and the 10-foot improvement setback to a 5-foot landscape strip along the east property line from the back of the existing building for a distance of 150 feet. Article 64-1091A states that for sites on 4 acres or less, a 50-foot wide undisturbed buffer with a 10-foot improvement setback shall be located adjacent to all AG1 zoning districts and all property zoned, used, or developed for residential uses. Therefore, a variance is required. Design Review Board courtesy review. This review was performed on March 1st, 2011. The board offered the following comments. The applicant will have to prove the hardship to the BZA, and aesthetically, a buffer is better than no buffer. Additional department comments. The staff held a focus meeting on March 1st, 2011, in which the following comments were provided. Building plan review, site plan review, DOT had no issues. Comments from the arborist are as follows. The area requested for a play area can easily be moved to the southern portion of the property without the need for any variances. A 70 by 55 foot area can easily be placed within the required east and west buffer areas adjoining the existing rear play area. 25-foot buffers will remain intact with no to minimum additional buffer plantings required to be located in this area. This option will still require the existing buffer behind classrooms 1 and 2, to be planted to buffer standards, as well as the western landscape strip planted per overlay standards of 1 3-inch tree every 30 feet, and this would require 5 trees. You have an attached arborist planting plan in your packet. Standards for consideration. The approval of a variance is based on the following considerations. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. There are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. Relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, and that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and that substantial justice is done. The applicant responds as follows. The property is 107 feet wide east to west, the septic tank at 10 feet southwest of the back wall of the main building. The drainage line goes from the far west side of the property south by 100 feet with a large area for the drainage field. With the recent expansion, which is crucial to the survival of the school, there will not be enough space for children's playground. 78 children require a larger area of playground. There is 20 feet from the existing fence to the trailer building that may be used for additional playground. Every bit of space on this property has been used. Unfortunately, the septic system has restricted us to a very small area to work with and to expand into. This variance will allow the expansion to be completed. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Number 1, plant the 5 required 3-inch caliper trees in the landscape strip along the west property line. 2, reposition the fence and plant the 5 required 3-inch caliper trees in the landscape strip along the east property line, or contribute funds to the City of Milton Tree Fund. Final cost is to be calculated by the city arborist. And 3, comply with all outstanding conditions of RZO 720 and BCO 7015. This concludes the staff presentation.
Any questions from the board to staff? Yes, sir.
I have one question. You had mentioned in the background that there is currently a chain link fence located approximately 5 feet into the buffer along the east property line. Is that in violation of any ordinance or zoning?
Well, basically, it's grandfathered.
Angela, I have a question. How long can a business run in the city of Milton without a CO? Do we have any regulations?
Well, the business itself has a CO for the main building.
Okay.
They just can't use that, the temporary classrooms.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
And this may not be for you, but it may be for the arborist. Is there planning restrictions around the septic tank? Are there certain things that can or cannot be done?
The only thing I'm seeing next to that, anywhere near that septic tank, is the tree, the landscape strip. I don't think we have any restrictions on that. We just plants, the species selection will be what we want, something that's not going to have invasive roots.
And I notice they don't show on here the septic fields necessarily, which is probably the more critical element of your tree planting. And you may not know that. I mean, it may be something we've got to ask the applicant.
Right. They did not submit where the septic field was, so we're not aware of that.
Okay. Is this a time to ask the arborist any questions about his recommendations?
Sure. Go ahead.
Nancy?
There we go.
Sorry.
The arborist presented a plan. I guess I don't know if it's something where we could show the audience or not, but there is a plan that you submitted, and I just wanted you to maybe just discuss that a little bit, what you're proposing here.
Okay, I'm not sure which one you're looking at. The one on with the
Page 8 of 13.
8 of 13.
Here.
Okay, is that this? Okay. Along the eastern property line, the western property line, we'll start with that. That's the one that was reduced from a 50-foot buffer to a 5-foot landscape strip. And per overlay requirements, they're required to have a 3-inch caliber tree planted every 30 feet. And that would require 5 trees along that area. The 5 trees have still not been installed. There would be a problem with that because the fence, the chain link fence, is located about 5 feet inside the property line. To get the trees planted there, they're going to have to remove some debris and even encroach on the neighbor's property, probably remove trees there. So you have a very limited space to plant trees. That being said, that would be the same issue on the the eastern side, if that were reduced to a landscape strip. That 5 foot with that fence where it is presently does not give you any room to plant a tree or to get to it to plant it. Plus, with the neighboring vegetation that overhangs the property, it'd be very difficult to plant the trees on the landscape strip there. It would take some extensive work getting onto the neighbor's property, removing debris, removing some existing trees to plant that landscape strip. Problem there is, I don't know if this will come into play or not, but if the neighboring properties ever change their zoning, then you do have the room for that landscape strip, but we don't have the trees there. So,
Is not the true intent, I know planting the trees is what the code says, but I guess in my view, I guess I'm looking at screening being the important issue, and we don't dictate whether a tree is deciduous or not deciduous, or for that matter, whether I guess you can't use certain shrubs in this case. It does say a 3-inch caliber tree. But in the case that, let's say we wanted to look at using a shrub, using something, and I don't know what you would recommend, but, would planting a wax myrtle there versus a tree, would that leave you any ability to plant better than a tree?
not really. We did.
Even if you started out small, saying something like in the 3 to 5 gallon, and let it grow into its space, just outside the fence?
You're talking about wax myrtle that's going to grow well outside of its space.
Oh, I know it
in
will.
a 5-foot area. I think that just totally is not congruent with what the intent of the ordinance is as far as landscape strips, to make it more aesthetically pleasing. Now, I understand the constraints here on this project.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying
You
to
know,
figure out.
And I'm looking at maybe further down the road, what happens when something happens here, then we don't have the trees that should have been planted in, you have shrubs, that's not going to work on the next phase, you know.
Well, a good friend of mine had a daycare center. You may have known him, Mike McGuire with Roswell over there near Martin's Landing. And he too had a daycare. One of his complaints, along with his wife's, was creating a screen just so, you know, just anybody just can't go over and you know, look or do or whatever. So that's why I always thought screening was an important issue for daycares, not just the trees. And then secondly, like you said, I went out to that site and looked at the amount of trees there on both sides. It's heavily wooded on both properties. I'm wondering how well something will survive in that area. I mean, I guess it is pretty shaded. I mean, I'm not asking you to solve the problem, but I mean, are there any things that would work better or worse, be it a tree or a plant that could do a little bit better in a tighter confined area? I mean, maybe we got to go look at you know, those very tall post-like junipers. What's that called? Where that the Italian juniper, or whatever it is, that grows straight up. I mean, I'm like you. I'm trying to go, well, what can you put there? Because anything you put could probably you know, get pushed over, and then I'm worried about the septic tank field, at least in that area. So I'm just brainstorming with you. So
Right. Well,
Let's let the applicant present, and then we'll see
Okay.
where we are.
one option here would be, if you can't get the trees in right now, I mean, this is going to be very difficult. I don't think shrubs would be the option. It's not going to, long term, that's not going to, it's just not incongruent with the ordinance, the overlay, what we're looking for. Option there would be donating them out of the trees to the tree fund. Then when those other sites start to develop, then we can come in and take that money and plant the trees once we have the room to get in there and plant. The other option, as far as the eastern side, the one that we're just asking for the variance right now, that was given with the condition that that buffer be maintained, that buffer would have to be planted, and that buffer still has not been planted. So yes, you could get the buffer plantings in that area with no problem. The buffer plantings, the landscape strip's a different issue. And if I can jump on, as far as the space required, I don't know if you're looking for this, as far as the space required, you take that same amount of space that's back in that buffer and put that toward the southern part of the property and not have to have a variance at all.
is that area not a little bit steep? I mean, you've got to go up a good bit to get there. I mean, I'm just,
You may have to, they did that once already anyway, and it's, you know, again, it's an option, it's a choice.
Sure.
It's a little bit steep. We'd have to take out some trees, non-significant trees, a lot of small, young vegetation, pine trees, a lot of young growth. But there is more than ample room back in that area to increase the play area back there.
okay. Angela, I saw something you mentioned about a fence missing, that they were supposed to plant a fence,
Build a fence.
build a fence. Plant a fence,
One of the
sorry.
conditions of the original rezoning was a 4-board horse fence out front along the road.
From 2007 rezoning?
Yes.
And what happened with that when you mentioned that to the applicant?
I don't know that we've discussed that.
Okay, okay. Are there any other issues besides the fence and the plantings that are big issues?
Let's see, planting the west landscape strip, the fence, and the certificate from the state.
Okay.
And the buffer, and planting the buffer or landscape strip if you approve it tonight. That would be
Any other questions for staff? This time, we'd like to invite the applicant forward to please present. If you state your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Pega Firuzi. I'm the owner of IQ Academy at 2865 Webb Road. And it's interesting. This is about the third or fourth time that I'm coming before you. Ever since I started this property, I knew that I needed to expand. And since this was in the hands of Fulton County, I've been asking for the buffer to be reduced. As for the fence in the front, when we did the rezoning, it was not something that was required of me to do. Because my case started at Fulton County. They grandfathered a lot of things that was done through Fulton County. However, somehow this 150 foot beyond the building, the buffer reduction was missed through the hands of Fulton County, and that's something that I've been for the past 4.5 years coming back there, and I've been asking, I've been telling everybody that I have the hardship. If I don't do the expansion, I am going to collapse. And believe it or not, the last time I was here, I said, I'm going to fold up, I'm going to go bankruptcy, and I am talking to you as a bankrupt person right now. And this is the last chance that I either get this expansion going or really the school is not going to survive. Now, the only thing that I've had a problem with, it seems to be planting the trees, and all along it's been insistent, Mr. Law has been insisting that I need to do that. However, this is really the first time he has come forward and said that how difficult it is to actually plant it in the areas that he has just said that I need to plant. And I need the space for the extra playground. For 78 children, the area that I have right now is not enough. And the elevation that the property has, it makes it very, very difficult, and I need to do a lot of grading in order to create the tiny little space next to the septic tank that I may be able to expand into. The other area is, you're talking about south part of the property. I have no idea what area he's talking about because the rest of the field is drainage field for the septic tank. We removed a lot of trees in order to get that drainage field up there, and I cannot put anything. I couldn't even put a small, tiny little court, a basketball court or something for children up there because there's just not enough, there's no room for me to put any concrete area. This property is very difficult to work with and expand into it because of the fact that it's narrow. There was a mistake on the rezoning that we did, previous rezoning. I don't know if the decision was because of that, because the north and south on the map was, or the site plan was wrong. Therefore, east and west got all jumbled up, and I got the reduction for the west side of the property, which the septic tank is sitting on. And whereas I actually, the only area of the property that I can work on is the east side of the property. But then again, going back to the original request, with Fulton County, I asked for 150 feet beyond the existing building or the original building. It's just because I knew from looking at the plant and the future of the school, I knew I had to expand, and I need that space. I don't know how else to say the difficulty in doing anything else on that property. I cannot move right now. I'm suffocating. And we're stuck. The CO has not been released. I went into expansion in order to survive. I'm $50,000 out of pocket expense, and I'm still stuck with planting 72 trees, which was the last thing that I heard from Mr. Law. And now that I hear that that's not even possible to plant it in the areas that he originally said that should be planted. So I'm very confused, and I asked the city to even get all my paperwork, and it seems like my file from the last rezoning has just disappeared. To be honest with you, I'm standing here, I don't know what else to say, what else to do in order to get this school to survive. How else I can make the city to understand that this school needs the expansion. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Sir, go ahead.
Can you help us understand from the drawings that you submitted, where is the current septic drainage field on the property?
The drainage, if you look at the property where the temporary building is, there is a drawing right. If you look at this building, there's a fence, right? South of beyond that is all drainage field.
Okay, and my follow-up question to that is, what is the issue with locating a play area in a drainage field?
I cannot. I'm not. I am told that I cannot put any kind of a structure in a playground on a drainage field.
Well, structure, I would understand. What type of play area are you contemplating? Is it impervious surface, like concrete or asphalt?
Well, that was part of something. I can even work with that. It doesn't necessarily have to be concrete. But the last time that I checked, as far as having any place set, I cannot put anything on a drainage field.
And who instructed you to that?
Well, when I started this whole project,
Was it that city of Milton that said you could not locate a play area there?
this started from Fulton County, no.
Okay.
Fulton County. However, I did check with Jimmy, the city, in regards to putting playground up on top. And I gave him some ideas of what I could do, and I was told that I can't do anything. I cannot put any play set up there.
Okay, so just to be clarified,
So this is just an open field.
is the play area contemplated to be an impervious surface, like concrete or asphalt?
No, it doesn't have to be concrete or asphalt.
Well, and the reason I want to clarify that is there's potentially other issues with that expense-wise that you'll need to consider as far as drainage and such. So I just want to I want to be clear for the board what your intent is with this play area.
Well, my intent was that, well, if I have the 20-foot area, I can set up, because I have different age groups there, and I can put in a small playset area for a different age group at the back of the building. Until the time comes that I'm going to put a permanent building, then I will come in and perhaps we'll go through zoning, moving the building, because right now everything is based on where the building is sitting. I can make those changes later. However, there is plenty of room back there beyond the building that I can, the temporary building, that I could put a small play set, at least for a different age group. Restricting, yeah, I can squeeze terribly to try the time and have the children out at different times of the day. However, there's only a certain amount of time of the day, and by the state, I'm required to have the children out for a certain amount of time and so often during the day. And in having 18-month-old children through 6 years of age and having that one play set, it's just not going to work. With 78 children, it's just not going to work.
Okay. My other point to make is, just so you understand and the public understands, financial hardship is not one of our considerations for a variance request. I can empathize with the expense that you've gone through and the situations you're facing as a business owner, but that's not a consideration for us as it relates to this variance request.
Financial hardship is driven to the financial hardship right now. It was something that I have brought up. The reason I wanted to do the expansion because the survival of the school based on that expansion. However, most of the hardship is the property itself. The property itself and the septic system is just not giving me the space. We've squeezed as much as we possibly could from the parking lot to the building to the playset. There's just not much I can do, and the only thing that I have is on the space that I have is on the west side of the property. And the west side of the property is the septic tank is sitting there, and the pipe that goes up to the back, and that whole field. And the elevation of this property, I mean, it took a lot out of us to go through the whole grading of that property so we could make sure that we don't have flood out in the street. And just touching that property anymore is just disastrous.
Okay.
It takes a lot of work.
Is there any reason, I'm sorry, you did?
That's all my questions.
Okay. Is there any reason why you didn't look into the southern portion of the property like Mr. Law stated here?
I'm trying to understand what he means by the
Or you wouldn't even
southern.
need a variance? Yeah.
She hasn't shown that.
You're talking about the highlighted area?
Yes.
That's a wooded area. So what do you want me to do? To take down all the trees? Take down more trees to create
We understand that that's young growth. And
Besides, I was told that I'm not allowed to touch that area just in case for future because there's supposed to be a drainage field for the septic system and a backup drainage field. So I have the drainage field, and we took down like 60 or 70 trees in order to create the drainage field. And that area, the wooded area back there, if it's touched, they're going to ask for a backup drainage field. This is, I mean, you have the drawing. I've given the drawing in our rezoning. It's all been passed on to you from Fulton County also. This is your request to take down trees beyond the drainage field to put playsets there?
That's an alternative. That's an alternative.
This is an alternative by whom? Who has made this plan? I mean, I'm trying to understand here. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That was myself that made that suggestion as far as removing trees. This trees have already been moved from the back of the building all the way back to that area at one time. So I don't know what your concern is about removing more trees. That area right there, you can, it's insignificant trees. It's not a large stand of old trees. It's young trees. It's not very dense with a lot of overgrowth. That area can be removed. It would still leave extensive trees within the rest of the southern portion of the property, and again, would not require any variance. You could extend that playground area that far. You could even extend it a little bit further and still not require a variance. And that's what I was looking at doing, trying to protect the eastern and western property buffers there, the eastern and western portions, by moving it in an area where you are capable of extending the play area.
I'm sorry, I don't want to be disrespectful, but isn't that kind of like eating like this? I mean, I have a property that's already been prepared, and there's space there, and I've already gone through variances, and the cost beyond the variances, and there's a small space that I need, and it's already there, but you're going to ignore that piece of property, tiny little piece of property, and you want a whole lot of trees back there to go down so we don't request variances? For some reason, I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense to me. Take down trees back there, have the children walk 200 feet or more of all different ages where it can be pretty much right outside of their classroom, which is what it should be. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you've got to consider the nature of this business too. I mean, I understand that you want to go by code, but it's got to be something that makes sense.
What year did you open the business, ma'am?
2007, May 2007.
Yes, sir.
The other question that the staff mentioned was something about a certificate. I'm not an expert
From the state.
on what the certificate states from the state, but
State license, for childcare?
I don't know. I may have to ask the staff to just clarify what this certificate is.
State requires 100 square feet per child on the outside, and just the same as they require 35 square feet per child an interior. For exterior, they require 100 square feet per child for outdoors activities.
Okay,
But
so-
yes, they also do, I mean, you have to plan it out. If you have a school, I mean, there are schools of 200 children, and they take turns going outside. And the environment, the area, they have to set up some sort of a program to convince the state that they have so many children out at certain times of the day, and the space that's out there has to be enough for that number of children.
I can read the condition from the rezoning. Prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, comply with all regulations of the Georgia Department of Human Resources and file a copy of the approved registration with the Community Development Department. So it's kind of a circle. Before she can give us the registration, she has to get her certificate of occupancy. Before she can get her certificate of occupancy, she has to comply with all the rezoning conditions, and she has to show them that she has adequate playground space.
Right now, actually, the only thing they've approved everything, just like all the permitting, everything has been done with the city. They have done their part. They're just waiting for the certificate of occupancy to be released to them so they can increase the license capacity for 78 children.
Mark, if she decided to contribute funds at the City of Milton Tree Fund, what would that cost be, approximately?
Roughly, and what are we talking about? We're talking about reducing the 2 landscape strips?
Yes, sir.
Be the cost of 10 3-inch caliber trees. I did, and it'd probably an average cost right there, and roughly we're looking at about $300 per tree.
So $3,000. Okay.
I don't know if this is the place, but I guess when she finishes, I have some comments I'd like to add to it.
Okay, so,
Any more questions for the applicant?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so on this fence issue, I want to make sure I understand this. There's an outstanding fence that supposedly the city says is required. Your response was it's not required, that it was something that when the property was zoned, it was zoned before that condition was in place. Is that correct?
That was my understanding, yes.
Okay, and if a fence has to be placed, are you in a position where you could put a fence up along that front property line? I mean, I would think that, just something to keep the children in may not hurt in that area of the front. But I understand what your concern is.
Our responsibility with the children is past the front door. Actually, as soon as the children are released to their parents at the front door, that's the parents is the parents' responsibility. The kind of fence that the city of Milton is asking, as it was talked about at the rezoning, it's not going to keep children in. Chain link fence is actually almost even difficult to keep the children in. That's
Here's
more
my
decorative.
problem. My problem is, I'm looking at a number of things that haven't been done. And now I'm being asked again to do something for someone to help them. And it's real hard for me to say, okay, keep on giving, without having a good understanding of why certain things weren't done to begin with.
Well, I wasn't under the impression that I was required to do that.
I understand that.
Since the past rezoning, I have been in touch with Mr. Law, and he told me that there were certain trees and shrubs that needed to be planted in the front of the property. I did as he asked. And to my knowledge, the only thing that was pending was the trees on the east side of the property to comply with the code, with the buffer code, which I just haven't been able to do, and I cannot do that because then I would be stuck with absolutely no space. So I needed to bring this back in here to go over it again. But I was absolutely not under, I mean, are you holding that up against me, that I haven't done something I was supposed to do? See, there's a whole lot of things that was done. I did everything and the permitting through Fulton County. When it came to actually inspection, the final inspections, everything fell in the hands of the city of Milton. I went through a lot to try to go back, and it was kind of like starting all over again. And so it's like I'm not quite sure what it is. The city of Milton wants to start this all over again and bring the property up to code with the city of Milton and forget that this started at Fulton County. But I'm not, I had no idea that I was required to put that fence. To my knowledge, what was brought to the council at that zoning, which this fence was brought up, that everything was grandfathered, whatever the city, the Fulton County. And now you're asking me, do this for me and I do that for you? Is this, do I understand
Not
this?
necessarily. Here's what I'm really saying is that I'm concerned that if it's something that was supposed to be done, that I would expect it to be done, because you know, it's just like you with your children. If we're going to go to get some ice cream, I expect your room to be cleaned up. If I expect to do certain things,
Yes,
we expect
I
that
understand.
these things be done first before we start getting into doing more things.
I understand, but my
so-
my understanding is that was not the case.
Right.
This was, I didn't even know that
Well, I understand, but
this
I've
was
gotta
required
understand
until you
better.
brought it up just now.
Well, I think what I'm going to request at some point is get a resolution so that something is in writing to you to
Right.
make sure that you understand what's involved. So that way it's not misconstrued. It may have already happened, and there are letters available with correspondence back and forth. But what I don't want to be put in is a point of judgment. I've got to take you at your word. I've also got to take the staff at their word. But the problem is I've got a case in front of me that seems to me to have unresolved issues from the past, and I'm trying to say I'm the judge here. We're all the
Yes.
judge here.
I understand
We're trying
you
to
have a
say,
very hard position.
Where's the truth? How can we work with you? And I think all of us want good businesses in Milton, and we want everyone to prosper. It's to our best interest. It's to that street's best interest. But the big question is, we just got to make sure that everybody's being fair with one another. And that includes us to you and you to them. So that's where I am. I need to make sure I feel that everybody's done what they said they were going to do. And I understand the hardship. I heard it the first time you were here 3 or 4 years ago, and we did work with you to help you. And I think I even made the motion and
Yes.
to try to help. But at the same time, I've got to understand, am I just putting our staff at more angst over the issue because I keep on working with people and then find out that folks aren't working with them? But I think that'll be resolved in our comment back to the staff. I think we'll get Angela to address some of these issues. But that's why I had to ask that. And
Angela, do you want to address that now, or do you want to do public comment first?
I actually have a question for
Okay.
you before we...
Go ahead. Sure.
I understand your position regarding the usability of the property. There's other considerations, and I think they're especially important given the fact that you're running a daycare center, and these children are going to be obviously playing outside in what is evolving to be a largely commercial surroundings along Webb Bridge there. So locating a play area within 5 feet of your property line is, I think, something that warrants further discussion as it relates to our variance considerations. So I'd be interested in your hardship as it relates to whether or not this will cause substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, whether or not that public safety, health, and welfare are secured. Those are important things, I think, given this type of business and variance you're requesting.
I understand. The reason is actually, the reason why I've taken this step is because this is the easier step. There is one other step. That building is a temporary building, and it's a leased building. It's not going to be there permanently. Because the expansion had to be done in stages. One was the grading, which took a lot, and I cannot have the school completely be not functional. So I needed to do in 2 stages: is do the grading, bring in a temporary building, be able to do the expansion, and get the next break to put the permanent building. And once we are able to put the permanent building, to reduce the buffer, it would allow me to move the building back about 10 feet. This way, the children's playground, that play area, it will move to the middle where the existing play set is. It would be extended to that, or just a small area right next to it. This way, they're not going to be right next to the fence, which is standing in 5 foot of the border or the property line. So in case in the future somebody comes, God knows whatever business is going to go next door, they're not going to be in such a close contact with each other.
So can you help me understand where you're anticipating locating a permanent building at some future date?
The permanent building would be very close to the existing gate, the fence right now on the east side of the property. Right now, it is sitting on a 20 foot away from it. So even if I push it back about 10 feet, closer to the east side of the property, to the fence, it would be 5 foot from the fence, and I would have some more room in the middle, in front of the building, to put more play set or extend the play set that I have to accommodate more
Okay, so just
children.
make sure I understand, we all understand. This is the west, correct?
That's the east.
East.
That's the east.
So you're anticipating moving this building 10 feet further to the
Exactly.
east,
Yes.
and therefore
So
being
our-
able to pull back the play area from here.
Yes.
Why didn't you locate the temporary building there in the first place?
Yes.
Because I wasn't allowed. I wasn't given the permission. I've been fighting since day one to try to have that space
So you've
to
got a
put
buffer
the building.
setback here, and you're looking to, wouldn't it have made more sense to go forward with a variance request?
I have done the grading to be able to put the property, to put the building in that location, so there's not so much loss on me. But I've been fighting since day one to try to get the east and west side of the property to reduce the buffer. And like I said, because of the mistake of my engineer putting north and south incorrectly, west and east was confused, and I was given the reduction of the buffer on the west side, which I didn't need, instead of the east side. So as we're here talking about east and west, I wish at that day that you hold up the map the way you're doing now. But however, from day one, because I knew I was going to have the septic tank, the drainage field, and all of that, I actually need to have the buffer reduced to 5 feet from the 2 sides of the property. Right now, I'm stuck. The only place that I can do my expansion and have enough room for the children to have play set is on the east side of the property.
So it's your intent on this east side of the property to locate a permanent set of classrooms
Yes,
15 feet off the property line?
yes. Yes,
Okay. So that you can therefore have sufficient, pull your play area back on the westerly side, so it's not 5 foot off of your property line. Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. At this time, we'd like to open the floor for public comment. As there's no public comment, you have the opportunity to make a closing statement. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Want to get staff's comments before she goes closing?
No. No.
Yeah.
No.
You're all right, Gary. You're right.
I do have one last question, if you don't mind me asking. The plans are reviewed by a group of staff members, I guess, with the city. They're supposed to be licensed, correct?
Not necessarily, ma'am.
I was told that the state requires license for reviewing plans, for plan reviewing, isn't it?
You can address that to council.
I'm not aware of it being a requirement for the design review board. They're just providing a comment to they're not approving the plans or providing comments to
Well,
the city.
the plans, I understand that they go through different people and they review the plans and they sign it. And I did speak with the state, and the state said that, yes, they're required to have license.
Are you
in order
talking
to
about
review.
city employees or people that are on boards?
No, city employees. We're talking about when the plans are reviewed by the city employees, they're supposed to be certified or licensed, correct?
And again, you'd have to,
But this is what was told to me by the state. Everybody has license in the city, so they don't have license with the city of Milton? They're licensed to
there's
review
numerous-
plans and make comments
let
and,
council answer that. Don't get in the middle of that.
Okay. There's a number of different licenses, a number of different professions. I'm not sure that's the slope you want to go on. I just think that,
Let's let council answer this one. Go ahead, council.
This isn't necessarily the forum to raise that issue. If there's a particular concern about any particular items in this, you
I
can
am,
address it to the city,
okay?
and through council, we'll certainly respond.
Oh, okay. So you all are out of this, okay. I was,
We don't know the answer to your question, so.
okay, who do I find out that about? Because I'm curious.
I'll give you contact information if you like to question.
Yes, please. Thank you. Actually, I don't have anything to say in closing. I think we discussed this enough.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Angela, do you have anything to say before we ask questions to you?
Is public comment closed?
At this time, we'll close public hearing.
I'll try and give you some background and clarify some things and weave some things together. Ms. Ferruzzi is correct. She has been asking for a reduction of an east and west buffer from the beginning. Her original, I don't know if it was a rezoning or use permit, I guess it was a rezoning, Fulton County asked for that reduction. For whatever, they discussed it, for whatever reason, the buffer was not approved the way she thought it was. They approved a buffer reduction on on one side from the street to the back of the building. So our second go-around was with City of Milton, and then we had the problem of the arrow being wrong on the property. So the buffer that, again, she asked for got approved on the wrong side. And then she had the concurrent variance, which reduced the landscape strip on the west side, which reduced the buffer on the west side to a landscape strip. As part of that rezoning, we call it rezoning, and concurrent variance, one of the conditions was the horse board fence. She's right, this isn't put there to contain children or anything. This is decorative. This is something we're trying to get eventually all the properties in Highway 9 overlay to have. So that's one of the that's one of the conditions of that 2007 zoning approval. Staff sent a letter out in January 2008 with all the conditions, so she should have received that, and she should. We sent it out, so. So here we are now, and she's finally, again, asking for a reduction in the buffer. And this time it's on the west side, east, I'm sorry. East side. One of the issues, well, one of the things that I want to make sure the applicant and everybody understands, even if this variance is approved, there still have to be some trees planted. We still have to get the landscape strip planted on the west side, and even if this buffer reduction is approved tonight, there's still going to have to be trees planted on the east side. The problem with planting trees in the 5-foot landscape strip on the east side is that there's a chain link fence in the middle of that area. So to be able to plant the trees which are required, that fence is going to have to be relocated, which is going to cause further financial put out on the applicant. So that's why we came up with the choice of contributing the money to the tree fund. And one of the other things that we noticed, we did some rough, and then again, these rough calculations, and as far as I can tell, the required 100 square foot for 78 children was met by the space within this fenced area already. So, I don't know. I don't know if the real issue is planting these trees or what, and again, I could be off. We could be off on our calculations, but I don't know. But we do, either way, I just want to point out that some trees are going to have to be planted either way.
What is the east of that fence? Is that all heavy woods on the east side there?
You have a picture.
That's trying to tell which one. Is that this one right here?
It's wooded.
Is that it right
Yeah,
there?
that's it. Mm-hmm.
So it's already got heavy woods there.
Mm-hmm. Right, but there are no trees on her side.
What is the tree fund called? Is it contribution to,
It's the reforestation fund, which is,
is that what it's called?
It backs up to Highway 9, doesn't it?
Okay. Second question is, what about the 15-foot? If she wanted to move, let's say by magic the variance gets approved, and
This is
and they agreed all the conditions and all, could that building be shifted over as close as 15 feet from that property line, or are we going to be coming back and hearing another variance on
That was my question.
a side yard setback for a building in a commercial area adjoining AG1? Would that be something that would be allowed?
Well, it's a 10-foot building setback. Again, it comes down to whether or not you have the room to plant the trees with that fence
Okay.
where it is now.
Okay. And this lost file issue, is that the lost file of Fulton County's original zoning? Is that what file was lost?
We have that file. We have the 2007 Milton rezoning file. She's referring to the building permit file. For whatever reason, we cannot find that folder. It was kind of in the building chief's office or in an on-hold area, and we've gone through some transitions, and we do not know where that file is.
Okay. And the planting of 5 required 3-inch caliber trees, it has to be 3-inch? I mean, is that the requirement that it's 3-inch caliber?
per overlay, it is a requirement that it be 3-inch caliper every 30 feet.
So the only thing she could do is ask for a variance to that if she wanted to change.
Pardon me?
That she could always ask for a variance to that if she wanted to change.
That's correct.
So,
You could always ask.
okay.
Well, it would be, it would be a variance, I guess.
Okay. And those trees, that's where you said that contribution could be made to the reforestation plan, is that correct?
Reforestation fund, that is correct.
Okay. And would that also apply to the second one, which is a planting of 5 required in a landscape tree belong? I guess I see it twice on my recommended conditions. I see 5 required 3-inch caliber trees, and again, I see
One on
5
west, one on
required.
east.
We had asked
Oh,
for
okay,
the
okay,
plantings for
okay.
the east,
West
and
and
then
east.
we have the option of the plantings
Okay.
for the
Okay.
tree fund contribution on the west.
Okay. And again, would you be agreeable to the contribution of the funds? I know it says that here, but it doesn't say in the first one, so.
Under this situation here, again, with the limitations you have with the adjacent properties and the existing scrub vegetation that's there and the fence with this location, we want the trees to survive if they're planted. I just do not think you can plant the trees there and they really thrive. So I think the next best thing is once there is an area to plant, that would be when the adjacent properties are developed. Then you have room to get in there. We have room to get in there and plant some trees. Then when and if that will be developed, do not know. So.
And then we've got a letter here, and I've recently started wearing eyeglasses, but I need to get the magnifying glass out for the mouse print. I mean, this letter also looks like it's 2007.
2006.
And this was submitted with the rezoning, the 2007 rezoning.
Okay, so, I mean, are we even sure these are the same owners today as they were a year or two ago?
The owners haven't changed.
Owners haven't changed. And I don't see them here either, but I would have loved to see a letter from them stating they don't have a problem with this. But if
Any other questions to staff from the board? Angel, did you have anything else?
No? Yes, sir.
At this time, the floor is open to make a motion.
Okay.
Anybody
I
want?
make a motion.
Go right ahead.
I'd make a motion to deny petition B11-004 to reduce the 50-foot buffer, 10-foot improvement setback to a 5-foot landscape strip along the east property line for 150 feet from back corner of main building south for 150 feet. As the applicant has not demonstrated and met the considerations for a variance request, specifically the consideration of extraordinary and exceptional situations pertaining to the property, as it appears there's substantial room in the south portion of the property. In addition, there's cause for concern on the conditions for detriment to the public good in surrounding properties and public safety, given the nature of the business being operated here.
I'll second it for discussion.
I'd like to make some comments. First of all, I don't know how many folks who went out here, but if you go 2 doors, and make sure I get the directions right, to the east, you have a piece of property that I believe is in AG1, and they've got a dumpster out there sitting back behind their house. It's been full for probably a couple months. I don't know if you've seen it when you went by there. And that's got to be fairly close to their property line. And I also know when I drive out of this complex right here, the back entrance to Webb Street, I take a left, there's a daycare center right there on the left. And that daycare center has their playground at the front of their building, not at the rear, but in the front. And that's got to be no more than probably 20 feet or 30 feet away from the street. I bring up both these points for a very good reason. I think each property represents a different way of handling a need. And in this case, we've got a narrow piece of property, and obviously we've got 2 neighbors that obviously aren't upset about what's occurred out there, because we would have seen them here. And in addition, looking out there as I have, I kind of understand what she's going through, that the area of the playground you want is something close to the building. You don't want to take, 18-month-year-old children and walk them up a hill or to get to some swings and playgrounds. And I've built a number of playgrounds, and required by state law, you've got to have so much mulch so that if a child falls, they kind of bounce. So they can't be on concrete. Now, if she builds a basketball court or something like that, that's a different issue. But that's not what I heard, but that's not saying it couldn't happen, and the staff could address that later, and drainage, that's her problem with drainage. But my problem is, if she fails, what's this area going to look like? Is it going to be any better than the two existing buildings on either side of her or anything down the street? I think she's the cutting edge on this street right now for developing. We do have a shopping center that's at the corner of 9 that looks like it must be prospering because they're ready to start a new phase. And I'm willing to try to work with this lady, but at the same time, I understand what you're saying. I think the intent of the ordinance is to try to protect it, but I think I kind of heard both the staff members say it's probably not going to be C1 much. It's probably not going to be AG1 much longer. It's probably going to change its zoning to a C1. And when it does, they won't have these setbacks. That's not required when you have a property adjoining a C1. You don't have these major buffer setbacks. So why don't we be realistic and say, let's let these people get it done. But I'm going to tell you, I don't want to see you again. And I want to make sure that if it does get approved, and I'm not saying it's going to, we got a condition right here to get it tonight. I don't want to see you again. I'm going to tell you, you better get it all done, and the staff better get it done. But that's my point. I'm sorry to be.
The only thing I would like to add is I truly think that you got tied up between Fulton County and the city of Milton. I really do. I think, and it's happened to me before, so I understand exactly where you are. You started a business. You thought you could run the thing. Some things changed. I think everybody's made some mistakes. I truly think if we can work with her any way we can, I think we owe it to her. I really do. I think she's done her very, very best to try to open a business in the city of Milton. She's been there since 2006 or 2007, before we became a city. And I don't think she's done everything that she should. I agree with Walt. I don't think you've done everything that we've asked you to do, because I think there's some money issues. But that's not our problem. That's yours. But I do think, and I agree with Walt, if we do approve this, you better do every single thing, or you're never going to get a CO. That's just my opinion. I'm not speaking for the board, but I think we're done with you not doing what we think you should do.
Well, you need to let me make
No.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So, to address the points that both of you are making.
Sure.
First, the first point that was made by Walt was concern for moving the play area where 18-month-old kids have to go all the way to the back of the property. This property would support, as the applicant has requested, for multiple playground areas for the varying ages, and it would be no problem to locate the younger children very next to the temporary classrooms that have recently been built, providing then that the older children could be located further back to the property. We're talking about playtime, which entails the kids running around. So the fact that they would have to walk 100 feet or 200 feet should be insignificant for point one. The second point that was raised was the evolution of this area being largely commercial, and the sensitivity of this type of a business in what is a largely evolving commercial area, I think is exactly the reason why we would not want to have a building, current or potentially future building, located that near to the property line, housing and operating a daycare, including a play area. There is, I think the overarching point here is this property supports additional uses further back to the south. And it's upon us to recognize that And I don't believe the applicant has shown why they cannot make use of that land without then requesting further side yard variances. So I am also in favor of working, but the applicant has not shown exhausted their options with a significant parcel of land to the south.
And I understand, I agree, I wish I could say, no problem. We'll get somebody else to move in here tomorrow and take it over and do what they want, but I'm not sure that's the case. In addition, I have to say, I look at this daycare right over here, no more than a quarter mile from us, and how it operates, both in a commercial area and an office area, and it seems to be doing fine. I think, again, I didn't study all of its buffers and how it relates to the thing, but again, I think overall, I want to give the maximum flexibility to our property owners and homeowners, and if this is what she thinks, we'll help her break the log jam to make her operation work better. God bless her. I hope things work out.
Well, I think we do that within the bounds of what the intent of our ordinances are.
I understand. And I mean, this is something, as she said, and the chairman said, she's been trying to get this approved. She thought it was getting approved from this Fulton County and then us, and she really wanted the variance to be on that side, and somehow it got mixed up. And
Twice,
so
yeah.
I think there's a number of things
And
we've
we're the
done.
ones that had the east and west wrong for her. So those got goofed up at the very beginning. So it wasn't like, in my opinion, that she didn't try. Some of that wasn't all her fault. That's my only complaint here. I know exactly what you're saying.
I
And
agree.
if we hadn't have made some mistakes, I'd be with you 100%. But I think some of the things that she did was because we gave her wrong numbers on wrong sides of the property.
We only approved the variance that she requested.
Well, I'm just talking, not us.
We didn't make a mistake.
I'm talking about the city.
We approved the variance that she requested.
I agree.
Mr. Chair, just as clarification, the thing with the east-west property line, the engineer showed it on the property line, on the site
Wrong
plan
side.
wrong.
Okay.
Incorrectly.
Her engineer.
Her engineer.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
And
I
it wasn't-
misunderstood that.
It wasn't your decision, that you did a courtesy review for rezoning, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a fence all the way around the property, the entire property, not the front?
It stops right back here. I don't think you can see
Does
the
it tie,
detail right here.
does it tie into the structure in the
Yeah.
front? It does?
It does.
So the kids can't get into the front yard then, basically?
Correct.
Because I know part of your concern is safety
Yeah, the
and
safety.
and access, and as this gets developed, but the chain link fence should help with that. I mean, is there an intent to remove the fence at any point, or?
Well, the fence is on the planting area.
Right, I know. So that's why I guess the option may be to put some funds into the
I think that's
kitty.
what I would recommend
Me
as
too.
staff.
Yeah, I agree.
But I know what you're talking about.
Any other
I had young
discussion?
kids one time too.
Let's do an up or down.
Okay. We have a motion to deny B11-004 as it has not met considerations for request, and those considerations are basically B, C, and D, which are extraordinary exceptional situations. Relief if granted would not cause substantial detriment, and that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and the substantial justice is done. All those in favor of denying, please raise your right hand. All those against denying, please raise your right hand. Let it be known that it failed 4-1. Floor is now open for another motion. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion.
Say this slow, or write it down, because
I'm going to. I'd like to make a motion for approval of V11-004 to reduce the 50-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback to a 5-foot landscape strip along the east property line for 150 feet from the back corner of the main building south, for 150 feet from a back corner of the main building south for 150 feet. It's repeated twice, so I'm not sure why. With these conditions, plant the 5 required 3-inch caliber trees in landscape strip along the west property line or contribute to a reforestation plan. Number 2, reposition fence and plant the 5 required 3-inch caliber trees in the landscape strip along the east property line, or contribute funds to the City of Milton's tree fund or reforestation fund.
What's it called?
Reforestation fund. Final cost to be calculated by the city arborist. Number 3, comply with all outstanding conditions of RZ 07-020/VC 07-015. The reason for this variance is basically that I feel that it's in the, it will meet the intent, and try to get back to my page here. But that I believe that this property does have a hardship. The property does go up very steeply. She also has a hardship due to the septic field and relocating that area to accommodate the playground area, and the area that is steep, that you could possibly count as open space, is steep and therefore not as level as would be required for a children's play area. I also feel that if it's granted, it is and does not offend the spirit and intent of the ordinance. Also, looking at the overall zonings in that area, I feel like this zoning character will probably change on both sides, and therefore the buffer would be eliminated anyway. That's my reasoning, sir.
I'll second it for discussion. Discussion.
I have a question for staff. What is the side yard zoning requirement for O&I?
The setback? I believe it's 10 feet.
So this would take this to 5, which is,
Well, instead of a 25-foot buffer, it'll have a 5-foot landscape strip, but that 10-foot setback would still be in effect.
okay.
Any other discussion? We have a motion to approve V11-004 to reduce the 50-foot buffer, 10-foot improvement setback to a 5-foot landscape strip along the east property line for 150 foot from back corner of main building south for 150 feet with the following conditions. Number 1, plant the 5 required 3-inch caliber trees in landscape strip along the west property line, or to contribute funds to the reforestation fund. Number 2, reposition fence and plant the 5 required 3-foot caliber trees in the landscape strip along the east property line, or contribute funds to the City of Milton Tree Fund. And the final cost of all this will be calculated by the city arborist. And number 3, comply with all outstanding conditions of RZ07-020/VC07-015. And the purpose for this approval is that the septic fields are take up a large majority of the property, and there is a steep grade in the property which limits the open space, and all 4 of the primary variances would be met. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Let it be known that it passed 4-1. Thank you.
Good luck.
Who seconded?
I did. Please make sure you get with the city and complete everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck to you.
Good luck.
Okay.
Other business.
Other business, election of officers. Nominations open for chair. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion for Gary Willis for chairman.
Thank you.
Second?
Any other nominations? All in favor, raise your hand. That'll be known it passed. Vice chair.
Now, John is leaving.
Now, there's a great question. Do you know when John's going?
I think he said last time he was leaving
It's either
June
April or May.
Or May, yeah.
He's moving,
He's being transferred to Colorado.
Colorado Springs. And he has a huge announcement next month for everybody, huge.
Yes.
They know this stuff, did he tell you that?
No.
Yeah, they found out, they know what they're having.
Twins.
So, and the reason I'm bringing that up is as far as the board members who aren't here, Scott and John, John will be leaving we assume, in the next 2 to 3 months.
Yes. Nominations open for vice chair. Yes, ma'am,
Can I nominate Walt?
you can.
I second.
Any other nominations? All in favor, raise your right hand. Let me know, it passed 5-0. Now, can we turn everything off?
No, I need to make a
Oh,
motion
go
to
ahead.
adjourn.
Okay, second. All in favor, raise your hand. Now can we turn it off?